Tonight's big stories. A new diplomatic protest against China has been filed over its latest actions in the West Philippine Sea. And despite being forced to turn back, a supply boat from the Atinito convoy managed to bring supplies and donations to Lawak Island.
The House Committee on Legislative Franchises has adopted the resolution urging the National Telecommunications Commission to suspend the operations of SMNI. A Senate resolution has also been filed seeking a probe into reported cases of abuse in the Kingdom of Jesus Christ under its leader, Apollo Kibuloy.
And the passenger of the Piper plane, who was believed to have survived the crash in Isabela on November 30, did not survive after all. Welcome to the show. I'm Shawn.
And I'm Risa Diaz.
The civilian-led Christmas convoy may have been cut short, but the historic mission did open more eyes to what is really happening in the West Philippine Sea. The convoy set sail early Sunday morning with dozens of volunteers and a contingent of local and foreign media ready to document the voyage. The trip barely made it to the first stop, which is the vicinity of the Ayungin Shoal. After, they were shadowed by Chinese vessels, including what is believed to be a Chinese Navy ship.
Now, over in Ayungin Shoal, a resupply mission to the BRP Sierra Madre also faced aggression, with Chinese and maritime forces firing water cannons and leaving the ML Kalayaan severely damaged, its engine destroyed. AFP Chief of Staff Romeo Bronner was actually able to witness the incident as he joined the RORE mission to personally speak with troops stationed in BRP Sierra Madre. There was also another collision involving a resupply boat and the Chinese Coast Guard ship, which Beijing said was intentional on the Philippines' part. Now, this is what the National Task Force had to say.
It's akin to claiming that a tricycle intentionally rammed a Victory Liner bus on its way to Baguio. So we are taking this very seriously. But is this an act of war? We don't think so. No, this is just part of the cat and mouse game that China seems to be utilizing to further its own interest.
You know, Riza, based on messages with Gretchen Ho and Ed Lingao, who went on that civilian convoy, they said that the captain of their boat, Jorge de la Cruz, their boat was TS Capitan Felix Oca. He didn't want to push through because they didn't want to risk any possible encounters with Chinese maritime forces, and he decided to call it quits and cut the trip short. Now, the initial plan was to go directly to Lawak Island and then pass by the Ayungin Shoal on the way back to El Nido, but that didn't happen either. Now, National Task Force for West Philippine Sea held a press con earlier, and full force sila. Nandun yung Army, nandun yung DFA.
Tama.
Right? Sabi ni PCG spokes for the WPS, Commodore J. Tariela, natanong kasi siya, meron bang water cannon yung mga Philippine Coast Guard boats?
Correct. Because even though by joke, diba, we're like, how come we're not fighting back or doing anything other than, of course, filing a complaint or writing them,
Kung mga ba, di tayo gumagante.
Correct. So, that was a question that was addressed to him, during that press conference. Kung meron nga ba ang Philippine vessels itong water cannons, just like the Chinese, vessels would have. But he clarified something.
Okay, let's listen to what he said.
We don't need to go down to the level of the Chinese Coast Guard using their water cannon to use it as an offensive weapon and damaging the other vessels. What the China Coast Guard is doing, obviously, doesn't conform with the regional standard of promoting safety.
The good news is, magulo kasi medyo yung convoy is not in one big group,
right.
Diba? May naunang umalis, then there's small boats. So apparently 1/3 of all the donations that were being brought forth to the disputed waters, they did manage to reach Lawak Island via the ML Chawi. So that was one of the civilian boats. And the other supplies, if you're wondering, will be handed over to the Philippine Coast Guard.
Well, at least may nakarating kahit papano. And so far, safe naman ang lahat. Ngayon, kamustahin natin ang paglaot nitong Women in Action na kasama natin who joined actually the convoy. Gretchen Ho is joining us tonight. Gretchen, kamusta kayo dyan?
Riza, Shawn, Regina, good evening. It is so good to finally be able to talk to you and broadcast, though I did not expect to do that from here. I expected to do that from the seas. Nevertheless, we're all safe and sound. Happy to be able to talk to you still. There have been, sounds of disappointment from volunteers, from media men because of the captain's decision to turn back. Yet, also with the compiling factors and the string of events that happened over the weekend, you can also understand why the captain made that judgment call when we were surrounded by the Chinese Navy ships. Maayos naman kami, masaya. Nakaligo na ako sa hotel.
Congratulations sa ligo. Ang sarap ng feeling na yun. Pero Gretch, matanong ko lang, no? On your part, nandun ka, nakikita nyo, no, visible. Nakikita ko yung mga pictures na pinadala mo sa chat group natin. Kitang-kita mo yung Navy ships. And nagpanik ka ba at all? Like may konting, oh wow, moment ba na, before the captain, Jorge, made the decision, anong naramdaman mo?
Sa totoo lang, ina-expect naman natin na may mangyayaring ganun dahil nga we know that this trip has risk of its own. We were expecting to see Chinese vessels. What I did not expect was seeing a Chinese Navy destroyer first. Yun yung unang-unang barko na nakita namin na dumaan at ayun na nga, na-confirm natin yan through our photographers who had these long-range cameras at hindi lang isa, dalawa yung Chinese Navy. Kami naman we were on high alert. After the Chinese Navy ship passed, we saw the Chinese Coast Guard on the right side. Tapos nagkalituhan pa nga, akala ko dalawa yung Chinese Coast Guard kasi umikot siya. Tapos medyo mataas yung tensyon nung panahon na yon, but it is very real. The Chinese Navy ship was about 5 nautical miles from our ship. The Chinese Coast Guard ship was 2.5 nautical miles. Napakalapit, At nababasa mo na nga yung sa Chinese Coast Guard. Yung Chinese Navy, medyo malayo-layo, hindi mo mababasa. Pero just the sight of it sends already a strong message to our ship.
Gretchen, we know perhaps hindi naging madali yun for the captain to make such decision to abort, the trip. Tell us about the process that, kung naibahagi yan sa'yo, of making that decision. Kayo ba, yung mga sakay, were you also kind of like, para bang giving him, or giving him, already a feel na maybe it's, it's a better route to take na we just abort the mission?
Actually, the captain decided to turn back at the point when the Chinese Coast Guard started going towards us. It was going at 21 to 23 knots, while our boat was going at 10 knots with a maximum of 13 knots. So talagang mabagal kumpara dun sa Chinese Coast Guard ship. And when it steered its direction towards us, that was the point when the captain said, nako, iba na yung nangyayari, Hindi na to normal maneuvers, these are dangerous maneuvers. Even the Chinese Navy ship, medyo pasalubong siya. But bukod doon, syempre in coordination yan with the Philippine Coast Guard. The Philippine Coast Guard said, dumikit lang kayo sa amin dito sa port side namin. Pero tinanong natin kung nagkaroon ba ng reassurance yung PCG about what the captain was supposed to do. Sabi niya, wala. Sinabi lang, lumapit lang. Pero tatandaan mo, nung una, dapat 3 Coast Guard vessels ang kasabay ng MV Kapitan Felix Oca. That was reduced to 1 because the 2 Coast Guard vessels had to go to Ayungin Shoal. At dahil isa na lang, yun na nga yung judgment call ng kapitan. Pero bukod doon, before we set out on the trip, meron ng konting pag-aalinlangan mula doon sa owner ng barko at mula sa kapitan. Sabi ng owner, muntik na ngang umatras. Pero dahil, yun nga, para nakita natin, medyo conservative yung desisyon ng kapitan to turn back. Nung tinanong siya, hindi niyo po ba ine-expect na mangyayari ito, na magkakaroon ng Chinese vessels around? Sabi niya, bakit pa ba natin aantayin na magkaroon ng gulo, na may masaktan? So, he made that judgment call. Sabi niya, kutob ko talaga may mangyayari.
Okay. Okay, and gaano kalayo na kayo, Gretch? Kasi I understand, medyo past midnight kayo umalis. Yung ETD ninyo was something like 1 a.m. How far were you along the trip on your new route na hindi na nga kayo tutuloy ng Ayungin bago nyong naspatan tong mga Chinese ships?
Okay, we were, I think, 16 hours from the time that we departed south of Cayumangi Bank, 75 nautical miles from Palawan, 30 nautical miles left to reach Ayungin. Medyo malaking panghihinayang ng mga kasama doon kasi parang lahat na nandun sa boat, palaban, desidido, buo ang loob. We really wanted to reach our destination, but as Atin Ito Coalition said, they respect the decision of the captain, given that he is the one who will have to steer everyone to safety. And yung panahon na yon, sunset yun, that was 4:45 p.m. when he decided to turn around. And just imagine, we saw at that area, that was a little past the rendezvous point where we're supposed to meet the fishing vessels. Imagine mo lang, dun sa may Sabina Shoal, naabisuhan kasi yung ating kapitan na maraming nakaabang na Chinese vessels doon. Kung tumuloy pa siya, mas delikado for everyone. So, everything compounding, it led to the decision of the captain to turn around. After all, it is still a successful mission. The Christmas gifts have been delivered. Sabi nga nung iba, parang decoy ito, na punta yung atensyon doon sa MV Kapitan Felix Oca, while the ML Chawi was able to get past all the Chinese vessels because it's able to tread on shallow waters, bring the donations to Lawak Island, while the rest of the donations will be dispersed or will be distributed by the relevant agency. So tuloy pa rin naman ang Pasko dito sa Palawan.
And before, when your captain decided to turn back, what happened then, Gretch? Curious lang ako, nawala ba bigla yung tail ninyo ng mga Chinese vessels? Hinayaan na lang kayo? Did they leave you alone after the captain obviously decided to turn back?
Okay, so ganito yung nangyari, Pa-forward kami, the Philippine Coast Guard vessel was here to our right. Biglang lumabas yung Chinese Navy, pasalubong, ganyan. Tapos mamaya konti, merong Chinese Coast Guard vessel dito from the right. So medyo ganun na yung direction niya papunta sa amin because it was moving towards us. Umikot na kami ganun kasi nga nag-turn around na kami. Tapos nakita namin the Chinese Coast Guard really steered on a path that was going to go head-on if tinuloy nila yon. Kasi nga 21 to 23 knots kami, nasa 10 lamang. So makikita mo talaga na parang medyo hinahabol pa nga. But when we turned around, what was puzzling was the Chinese Coast Guard did not leave us until sunset. So medyo matagal-tagal namin kasabay. It felt like the Chinese Coast Guard was really escorting us back home. And you can just ask a lot of questions about why the Chinese Navy was that close to our territorial sea. Bakit nandoon sila, At bilang mga civilians, as Filipinos, why can't we travel on our own waters?
Gretch, you experience all of these firsthand, and I want to know from a personal level, what would your takeaways be from this voyage?
Well, kanina sa interview namin with Rafaela David, the lead of Atin Ito Coalition, tinanong natin sa kanya, nagsisisi ba kayo that you went public with this initiative, that you broadcast all the details? Kasi parang napaghandaan tayo ng China Sabi naman ni Paeng, hindi kami nagsisisi. Because now the world knows what China is doing to our ships. If transparency is what we want, then we have it. Ang personal realization ko here is, we're not doing any kind of propaganda against the Chinese. This is as real as it gets. We were there, we saw things firsthand, we were not told to censor anything. We reported it as it is, blow by blow, what really happened out there. So, walang propaganda dito, nothing's made up. the Chinese ships were there circling around us, and you could really feel the tension and the pressure to leave. And yun nga, no, parang it isn't us provoking, but you also ask, why were they so near? Why did they take on our course? And it is as real as it gets. Medyo, parang medyo namangha ako looking at the West Philippine Sea. Mapapatanong ka na rin talaga. Ito yung pinag-aagawan ng maraming tao. And you kind of understand why. It's very rich seas out there.
Bale, Gretch, ngayon no, pag sinasabi ng Coast Guard, no, dangerous maneuvers, you understand
Right.
and you have like a mental image of what that means exactly.
To be honest with you, I would have, if I were, but I'm not the captain, right? If I were the one behind the steering wheel, I would have gone a little further and pushed it on until, it goes to a point where you see something more aggressive from China. But I guess the captain was a little bit more conservative on that end. But I do understand when I saw the number of Chinese ships around us and the Coast Guard tailing us, going around us, cutting the path of even the Philippine Coast Guard vessel. You can understand why, because yung kapitan was carrying hundreds of people with him, journalists, the young volunteers, civilians. Of course, iniisip na rin niya, I'm going to be responsible for all of these lives, and I'm going to have to defend them. I'm going to have to be the one, at the end of the day, the responsibility falls on me. So, naiintindihan natin yung side ng captain. Siguro it's marami kami na sumampa doon sa barko, matatapang. Lahat kami palaman eh. We went out here to make a statement, but I guess it doesn't get any softer. The message doesn't get any softer just because we were not able to reach Lawak Island, Ayungin, and Patag. Ang sabi naman natin, we don't want to endanger the lives of our soldiers, our frontliners. The goal here is to just provide support and send the message that we are fighting for our rights, not just to be there, but right of passage and the right of travel in our own seas and our EEZ.
To send the goods, the Christmas Noche Buena packages. One last question, Gretch. Anong sabi for this movement in the future, moving forward? Magkakaroon pa ba ulit? What are the future plans?
Okay, sabi nila about this, they're hoping this is just the inaugural mission, inaugural civilian-led mission, because they're looking forward to being able to do it more and to be able to regularize and normalize travel in the West Philippine Sea. Kasi yun nga ang nakapagtataka, tayo mga Pinoy, atin naman yan, bakit hindi natin magawa mag-travel, no? This is not a military operation. This is just a civilian initiative to send help for our troops. So, asahan daw na mas marami pa ang ipaplano. Yun nga lang, no, lessons have been learned. They need to regroup, rethink, re-strategize, because, of course, the Chinese will not go down without a fight. They will not give up the seas that easily. So, the Philippine contingent has to be a little bit more strategic when sending out missions. And alam mo, gaya ng sabi ko, sa nangyari today, Riza, titingnan mo, tayo mga Pinoy, kahit pa paano nakagawa pa rin ng paraan. Nakalusuot si ML Chawi, nakapagpadala pa rin siya ng donasyon. At kami naman, ni Bok Ed Lingao, sa pinaglalaban nating freedom to broadcast, kahit pa paano, you underestimate the little things. You should not, because this sat phone carried us through. And we were able to report live from the West Philippine Sea still. Without video, but still, we were able to do it via audio. And so we celebrate the little wins, and we live to fight another day.
No, discretion, as they say, is always the better part of valor. And sabi nga ni co-convener ng atin ito, no, si Edicio de la Torre, mission successful pa rin naman daw. Gretch, take care. Kayo ni Bok Ed dyan. We will see you, I guess, sooner than we expected. Gretchen ho, thank you for tonight.
Now, needless to say, the incident has captured the attention of the international community once again. Several ambassadors have already condemned China's action, calling it aggressions that undermines regional stability. Another troubling incident, they said, about that back-to-back water canoeing. Now, there's also concern about China risking lives and livelihood. Meanwhile, President Bongbong Marcos also issued a statement saying the aggression and provocations perpetrated by the Chinese Coast Guard and their Chinese maritime militia against our vessels and personnel over the weekend have only further steeled our determination to defend and protect our nation's sovereignty, sovereign rights, and jurisdiction in the West Philippine Sea. We remain undeterred. Now, what's next on the side of the national security? Well, NSC Assistant Director General Jonathan Malaya hinted on a possible change of strategy.
We have made some adjustments given the recent developments, and we hope to be able to present this to the President very soon.
And as Gretchen has already told us, the Atenito Coalition is still eager to pursue another civilian mission in February of next year, although to where exactly is still up for discussion. Now, there are calls, though, to visit the Bajo de Masinloc, especially after the separate water cannon incidents that happened on Saturday.
Some people are saying, including those from there, paano naman kami sa Masinloc? Kami winater host rin dito eh. So some people are urging na maybe, well, it doesn't have to be only one, but maybe we should also plan something for the Masinloc area.
Now, as for the Department of Foreign Affairs, it said it is exhausting all legal remedies against China's actions in the West Philippine Sea. What exactly are those remedies? Let's get some insights from our palace reporter Maricel Halili. Go ahead, Maset.
Shawn, it seems routine by now, but the Philippines has already filed another diplomatic protest over the recent water cannon incident in the Scarborough and Ayungin Shoal. The government has also used the maritime communication mechanism. This is the hotline between the two countries. That's just one of the 3 actions undertaken by the Philippine government. The Philippine Embassy in Beijing also filed a démarche to the Chinese Foreign Ministry. Chinese Ambassador Wang Shilian has also been summoned earlier this afternoon. Given the back-to-back maritime incidents involving China over the weekend, the DFA was asked if these actions are enough to declare Ambassador Wang as persona non grata. This is what the DFA had to say.
It's something that will have to be seriously considered, whether the incidents or the series of incidents merit having him be a person non grata. But I would also like to add this. An ambassador is supposed to build bridges, is supposed to enhance relation and not strain relation. So we are calling that he assumes that he will try to do his best to actually enhance relations between the two countries.
Shawn, Daza said that it is regrettable that this incident happened on the 41st anniversary of the UNCLOS, and it was commemorated with a violation of the convention. However, the Philippines stands firm in its position that the mission conducted were well within grounds. Shawn?
Thank you so much for that update, Maricel Halili. Right, we're going to be taking a quick break for now. Right after that, the House Committee on Legislative Franchises resumed its hearing on SMNI, adopting the resolution calling on the NTC to suspend the network's operations. The details when we return. Keep it here.
watching the big story here on One News.
The House Committee on Legislative Franchises has adopted a resolution urging the NTC, or the National Telecommunications Commission, to suspend the operations of SMNI. In Monday's panel hearing, Isabela's 6th District Representative Faustino D. moved to adopt the amended version of House Resolution 1499. The original resolution was filed by PBA Party List Rep. Migs Nograles on December 5, calling for the suspension of Suarasog Media Corporation's operations for supposedly violating the terms and conditions of its franchise under Republic Act No. 11422. According to Nograles, Section 4 of SMNI's legislative franchise restrains them from using its stations or facilities to propagate false information. Aside from this, SMNI is also violating Section 12 of its franchise, or the submission of annual reports regarding their operations, financial statements, latest general information sheet, among others.
Sana nga po, tingnan ng NTC to. Sana po, habang ganon, suspend muna. Parang teka lang po muna. Tingnan po natin yung mga nangyayari.
Meanwhile, absent from the hearing was Pastor Apollo Kibuloy, despite being invited by the House Committee to speak on his involvement with SMNI. Now, Kibuloy insisted that he was not actually part of the company's officers when they were granted the franchise in 2019. But in the document submitted by SMNI to Congress, Kibuloy is still listed as the ultimate beneficial owner until April 29, 2021. Now, it came out during the hearing that the document submitted to the Congress by the company is different from the ones that submitted to the Securities and Exchange Commission.
Maybe, Mr. Chair, may pagkakamali sa pag-file sa House of Congress. But based on our record, Mr. Chair, in only 2020,
iba yung sinabi nyo sa SEC, ibang sinabi nyo sa committee. Ano po totoo doon?
yung totoo po, yung sa SEC po.
So fake ho yun na dito?
Hindi man fake po. Maybe nagkamali yung nag-file po.
That puts a lot of question on the truthfulness of the documents that you're submitting to the House of Representatives, which may tarnish the very franchise that you hold.
There's lots of developments over on the SMNI franchise hearing, but what about regarding the two detained SMNI hosts? Let's get more updates on that from Marian Enriquez. Marian, what do you have for us?
Riza, that's right. House Legislative Franchises Chairman Gus Tambunting revealed that the SMNI host Eric Celis has allegedly provided him with the name of the source in the Senate regarding the supposed 1.8 billion peso travel fund of the office of House Speaker Martin Romualdez. He claims that this person is a male and they are still in the process of verification. Celis also appealed for a furlough or temporary release to attend to his mother who is ill.
Ang request ko po ay makalaya bago ang Pasko para makauwi sa aking ina at sa aking mga anak. Sapagkat hindi po kami nararapat na makulong sa aming paninindigan sa karapatan para sa aming nakikita na tama para sa mga bayan.
The camps of Celis and Lorraine Badoy, meanwhile, also filed a motion with the Supreme Court to question the alleged illegal detention and arrest. With this in mind, the House decided to deny Celis' request as the hearing on this has been suspended.
Kasi makikiusap ka dito na humihingi ka ng pagpapalaya, kasan sa likuran namin, kakasuhan nyo naman kami sa Korte Suprema. So, sa aking palagay po, Mr. Chair, hindi yata sumasang-ayon yun sa common logic at saka sa ipinapakiusap ng kanyang kliyente.
Riza, as mentioned before, Congress will adjourn for the holidays from December 16 to January 21, meaning that Celis and Badoy could likely spend the holidays in detention if their request for a furlough is not approved. Riza.
Thank you, Marian Enriquez.
All right, let's move on over to the upper house, where Senator Risa Ontiveros has filed a resolution seeking a probe into reported cases of large-scale human trafficking, rape, sexual abuse and violence, and child abuse in the Kingdom of Jesus Christ under its leader, Apollo Kibuloy. In Senate Resolution 884, Ontiveros asserted that Kibuloy oversees a group of women referred to as pastorals, holding prominent positions within the KOJC. Based on information from sources, Ontiveros claimed that these pastorals are categorized into two circles, namely the inner circle and the more exclusive innermost circle. The latter is reportedly tasked with engaging in intimate acts, such as laundering Kibuloy's clothes, bathing him, tidying his room, and providing massages. Ontiveros also alleged that Kibuloy purportedly coerces members of the organization, many of whom are minors, into performing exploitative activities such as begging in public and soliciting money from strangers. Kibuloy is already facing multiple accusations, including land grabbing, sex trafficking, fraud, misuse of visas, and money laundering.
Up next, the bicameral conference committee has adopted the final version of the bill containing 5.768 trillion peso national budget for 2024. More on that when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News.
You're still watching the big story here on One News.
Bago natin pag-usapan yung national budget, let's go back to the previous item that we had earlier regarding, itong patuloy na developments, and there's a lot of new developments regarding that SMNI hearing. Pero yung mga host na na-detain, Shawn, and mukhang madidetain up until the holidays.
Oo nga, una nilang sinabi na pwede naman daw mag-furlough. I think we had Rep. Johnny Pimentel of Surigao. Here, we had an interview with him late last week. I think that was Friday nga or Thursday night. Ang sabi niya, actually, pwede naman sila mag-furlough kasi parang malungkot pa rin, di ba? Kahit may kasalanan ka na ma-detain ka through the holidays. Ang sabi niya, they can ask for furlough. Ang nagyari kanina, I was watching the hearing, nagsulat ng letter si Jeffrey Celis asking for the furlough and apologizing to all the congressmen for offending them.
Again, this is the host.
This is the host, si Ka Eric / Jeffrey Celis. He is one of the detained hosts. And then may mahabang discussion doon sa committee hearing about bakit iba yung kasalanan kumbaga ni Ka Eric sa kasalanan ni Lorraine Badoy na parang they're more inclined yata to allow Miss Lorraine Badoy kumbaga to go free, quote-unquote, or go on furlough for the holidays. Kasi iba daw yung And then, I was watching the live stream. Pinag-uusapan pa nila, kina-question nila yung lawyer, si Mark Tolentino, kung siya, ikaw rin ba yung lawyer nitong dalawa because nag-post daw siya sa Facebook and I think it irked the congressman na yung post niya, yung caption was, I'm here with the illegally detained, ganyan. So, pinatanggal sa kanya ng mga congressmen. Parang itanggal mo yung post mo sa Facebook.
But we heard it in the interview earlier, but yung members ng panel, like the congressmen, most likely, parang the mood is saying hindi nila papayagan. But we'll see, because it still is a developing story.
It
but
is.
All in the hope, that maybe some hearts will be softened because
Here is the thing though, they only have 2 more working days this week before they go on Christmas break. So baka hindi umabot.
Time is of the essence. That's right. Anyway, going back to this story, the proposed 5.7 trillion peso national budget for 2024 is inching closer to the president's table for signing. This is after the bicameral conference committee agreed on the final version of the bill. Lawmakers agreed not to allocate non-security agencies with confidential and intelligence funds. This includes the Office of the Vice President and the Education Department, both headed by Sara Duterte. Now, a special provision banning the use of contingent funds to augment the CIFs of other agencies was also adopted. Both chambers of Congress will need to ratify the budget bill before transmitting it to the Office of the President for signing.
Natutuwa kami sa buong Senado at nag-agree po sila at pinatunayan nila na walang mangyayari katulad ng haka-haka na may mangyayari sa BICAM na may ibabalik ang confidential fund, especially sa education. Di ito na ibalik and na-sustain ho natin yung kagustuhan din ng ating mga kababayan na iwasan na po itong confidential controversial fund.
Sa itong whole confidential and intelligence fund issue, ito yung nagsimula ng itong napakadaming nagyayari sa lower house and pati na rin sa upper house. Of course, maalala natin, this all started because the Office of the President transferred 125 million into the Office of the Vice President. And so the difference, I think, with what you just reported, was they adopted a resolution na bawal na yun gawin.
Correct.
So you cannot use another agency's funds to augment the funds of another agency.
Correct. And yung Makabayan Block, di ba, alam natin, ano yan kumbaga, activists that filed a petition versus, Sara Duterte regarding these, confidential fund, and, that became the third group to file a petition before the Supreme Court questioning the legality of yung na-transfer na 125 million pesos as CIFs to the office of the OVP back
That's
in
right.
2022.
That just happened today, actually. The first 2 petitions were already filed a few weeks ago. So itong petition ng Makabayan Block, yan yung bagong development. So today, the petitioners also asked that the Commission on Audit be allowed to review the OVP's 2022 confidential funds in the same manner as it audits general public funds. So tingnan natin kung magagrant yung hiling ng Makabayan Block. Of course, they are known as the opposition. And sila rin yung talagang umaalma against the confidential funds of the OVP and the DepEd for next year's budget.
But then again, the final signatory would still be the Office of the President. So let's see if this pushes through.
Exactly. That's a very interesting point. Moving on now to that lone passenger of the Piper plane that crashed in Isabela back in November 30. She was found dead yesterday morning near the wreckage area. According to the Isabela PDRRMO, the body of a woman was found at around 9:15 a.m. by canine trackers about 200 meters down the mountain slope from where they found the plane wreckage. The victim's remains are being brought to an area where they could be recovered by a Philippine Air Force helicopter. The remains will then be flown to the Tactical Operations Group 2 in Cauayan City, Isabela, where a funeral vehicle will be waiting. The lone passenger was not in the vicinity of the crash site when it was initially discovered by authorities last week, which made it appear that the passenger survived the crash, as indicated by a supposed makeshift shelter that was presumably put up by the passenger near the wreckage. For its part, CAAP says they are set to begin their investigation on how the Piper plane crashed in that area of the Sierra Madres.
po ang top accident investigators na po ang nag-take over niyan at pupunta sila ron sa site para i-retrieve yung mga importanteng mga ebidensya. No? Ito po yung tinatawag na emergency locator transmitter. Kailangan ma-retrieve yan. Nandun ngayon sa dulo ng aeroplano. At tapos yung ating engine at saka propeller. Yung tatlo po yan ang pinaka-importante ma-secure para malaman natin ang nangyari sa accident.
Now, in other news, Nora Babadilla, one of the 2 Filipinos taken hostage by Hamas, says she will return to the Philippines when she is ready to heal from the trauma. Babadilla, who is currently in Tel Aviv, recounted how she was taken. The 60-year-old Filipino was visiting a friend in Kibbutz Nirim when Hamas attacked on October 7. She also recalled their living conditions while in captivity.
Ang pagkain namin pita lang na may konting cheese, yung labanin na tinatawag nila. 3 kami kumakain. Bibigyan nila kami ng 2 pita, hati kami 3 doon, tapos konting cheese. Yun lang ang kinakain namin. Sa isang araw po? Sa isang araw. Minsan may 2 meals, minsan isa lang, isang beses. Tapos yun nga yung wala kaming ligo. Binigyan kami ng 1 timbang tubig para maligo ba? Magkakasya ba yun sa 3 tao?
Despite Babadilla being an Israeli citizen, the Philippine government says it is prepared to assist Nora after her harrowing experience.
So initially, makakatanggap siya ng $200 na emergency financial assistance from OWA. And then of course, if she decides to go home, she will receive an additional more benefits and financial assistance under the reintegration program of our government.
Now, after the break, we'll look into one of the biggest deals in Major League Baseball history as Japanese star Shohei Ohtani joins the LA Dodgers for a whopping $700 million. The details when we return. Stay with us. You're still watching the big story here on One News.
All right, on top of today's big stories, we have another one, Riza. Meralco announcing a reduction in power rates in December following 3 consecutive months of upward adjustments. The power distributor announced a decrease of about 80 centavos per kilowatt hour in this month's power rates. For residential customers consuming about 200 kilowatt hours, the adjustment is equivalent to a decrease of around 159 pesos in their total electricity bills. This cut is said to be on the back of lower electricity prices in the spot market, which in turn is caused by fewer outages in power plants. Additionally, the cooler weather contributed to lower consumption.
Now, there's also some good news for motorists as oil firms announce a big-time price rollback. Starting tomorrow, December 12, diesel will be cheaper by 1 peso and 85 centavos and gasoline by 1 peso and 60 centavos. Kerosene prices will be slashed by 1 peso and 40 centavos. The rollback is attributed to the decrease in oil demand. Industry insiders expect fuel price cuts to continue until the first quarter of 2024.
Now, before we go, here's a fun question for you guys. Actually, fun ba to? Kasi magyayari ba sa atin to ever? What would you do if you were given $700 million in a contract? Or if your contract was worth
Pirmahan
700.
mo agad yan.
Pirmahan mo agad. Hindi mo na check, hindi mo babasahin yung
Wala
file.
na, hindi na ako 700 billion, okay. I'll sign it right away.
Kahit nakapikit, no? Well, all eyes are now on Japanese baseball superstar Shohei Ohtani after he agreed to join the Los Angeles Dodgers for the next 10 years. Ohtani reportedly signed a deal worth $700 million over a decade, which is said to be the largest deal in baseball history. The most coveted Major League Baseball free agent in recent memory played the first 6 years of his MLB career with the LA Angels. Here's another fun fact. The Dodgers are set to pay Ohtani more than 8 MLB franchises will be paying their entire rosters. Flashed on your screens right now are the 8 teams that have a lower annual salary than Ohtani's contract. Meaning, yan na yung sweldo ng buong team. Okay, no? So yung Cleveland Guardians, yung sweldo ng buong team, $66.8 million per season. Kay Shohei Ohtani, $70 million per season over the next 10 seasons. But I don't know, he's really worth it. You were telling me, diba, that Nick was also talking to you.
Nick was talking to me about this, but he was saying, like what you said, it's like getting two very good players at the same time.
Right.
And I think he's the only one that has won like MVP twice.
Yes. And because he can do multiple roles. He can fill multiple.
Correct.
He's not a one-trick pony.
You were saying
he's a pitcher, he's a hitter. Right? So they call him a two-way winner.
He looks very expensive to me. Very expensive. And that's the show tonight. We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you again tomorrow. Have a good night.